My best friend didn't know I was saving his life, and 2, it was true that I've been hiding a terminal diagnosis from my best friend for months. Last night, he caught me writing my will. The look on Jake's face when he found those papers, pant man, it broke something inside me. We've been roommates since we were 7, Shid. What the hell is this? He demanded, holding up my medical forms. His hands were shaking. Stage 4, when were you gonna tell me? I couldn't look him in the eye. I wasn't. 6 months, that's all they're giving you. His voice cracked. And you are just accepting it. Everything is. I had my reasons. Jake lost his mom to cancer last year, washed her waste away through chemo radiation. The works, he still has nightmares. Here's an experimental treatment, I finally admitted, but my insurance won't cover it. Jake slammed his fist against the wall. How much? $300,000. He laughed, parned, that hollow kind. That's worse than crying. And what, you didn't think I'd help you? That's what you've been hiding. It's not your battle to fight, I said. What I didn't tell him was that I'd seen him checking his bank account every night. The student loans crushing him. The second job he took to pay for his mom's funeral, I am selling the deuce done, he announced, pulling out his phone. That car was his pride, his escape parent, the only thing his dad ever gave him before disappearing. Jake, stop, you can't watch me. His eyes burned with determination. And my crypto investments, they've doubled since last year. His throat tightened. That was for your future house. And what future do I have if you are not in it? He wasn't asking, he was telling me that night. Jake made calls, so many calls by morning. His gaming buddies had organized a fundraiser. His ex, Sarah, who still cares about him more than she admits, offered her streaming platform. Even my dickhead boss, who's never given me a day off, transferred $5,000 without a word. What none of them know is the doctor called yesterday. The treatment success rate is only 17%. I've decided to give Jake's money back. Tell everyone to stop. Let them keep living their lives. But this morning I found Jake asleep at the kitchen table, surrounded by fundraising plans, his laptop still open to medical research sites. A post-it note stuck to my coffee mug read, "Don't you dare give up. Here's what scares me more than dying. What if I take everyone's money and still die anyway? What happens to Jake then? But if I refuse it, I am taking away his chance to save someone he loves. Sometimes surviving isn't about living. It's about letting others fight for you. I think I've been looking at this all wrong. It's not about what I want anymore. It's about what Jake needs. He needs to try. Even if we fail." Chapter 2. The price of hope. I never expected a GoFundMe campaign to reveal who truly cared about me. 3 days after Jake found my will, our apartment transformed into campaign headquarters. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications, parent donations, messages, shares. People I hadn't spoken to since high school were suddenly reappearing in my life. "Dude, we just hit $75,000, Jake announced, bursting into my room without knocking. I was having one of my bad days, paired the kind where even sitting up felt like climbing Everest. "That's amazing," I managed, trying to match his enthusiasm while fighting a wave of nausea. The truth was, every donation felt like another weight on my shoulders. Another person I might disappoint. Jake's smile faltered as he noticed me struggling. Without a word, he helped me sit up and handed me the anti-nose and meds the doctor prescribed. "Sorry," he said quietly. "I should have knocked." "It's fine, tell me more about the campaign." Jake's excitement returned as he pulled up a chair. "Sarah's stream raised almost 20 grand last night. And get this, parent, remember Professor Harmon? The hard-ass who failed me in organic cana? Yeah, him. He donated $10,000 and shared your story with some medical research foundation he works with." I laughed, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through my side. Guess I should have failed more classes. Jake didn't laugh back, his eyes locked onto my prescription bottles. "How bad is it today? 1 or of 1 to 10? 4, I lied. It was closer to 7. Bullshabbat. I am calling Dr. Reeves." "Jake, no arguments." His voice was firm but gentle. "We need to know if the pain management plan is working. That's part of this too." As Jake stepped out to make the call, I checked the campaign page on my phone. The comments section was flooded with messages. "Hang in there, brother. We're all with you. My mom beat the same diagnosis with this treatment. Don't give up. Who's cutting onions in here? Donated what I could." One comment stood out from the rest. "Treatment's a scam, waste of money. He'll die anyway." I stared at the Unirmum Medical Truth 92. Something about it felt off. Jake returned, looking pleased. "Dr. Reeves can see you tomorrow morning. I'll drive." "I can drive myself," I protested weakly. "Sure you can," Jake said, patting my shoulder, "but my car has better music." Later that night, after Jake had finally crashed on the couch, I researched Medical Truth 92's claim. The treatment success rates varied wildly depending on the source pen, from 12 to 42%. Even the doctor who developed it admitted most patients didn't make it past the 2-year mark. I closed my laptop and limped to the living room. Jake was sprawled across our beat-up couch, his phone still in his hand, open to our fundraiser page. He'd fallen asleep mid-abruptly to a donor. The Dustem and keys lay on the coffee table. He'd already listed it for sale, but no buyers yet. That car was the last connection to his father, Pantaman, who'd left when Jake was 11, but still managed to leave an impression. Jake had spent 3 summers restoring it, learning mechanics from YouTube videos and falling asleep in the garage more nights than I could count. I picked up the listing from the table. 1967 fastback. His asking price was way below market value. He was trying to sell it quickly. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Dr. Landon from Meridian Research. Your case was brought to my attention by Raymond Harmon. I believe we should discuss alternative treatment options. Please call my office tomorrow. This is time sensitive." My heart raced. Meridian Research was developing the cutting-edge treatment my oncologist had mentioned, parent, the one with the wait list a mile long. As I stood there torn between waking Jake with this news or letting him sleep, I noticed something on his laptop screen. He hadn't just been replying to donors, parent, he'd been researching plane tickets to Mexico, to a clinic that offered the same treatment for half the price, but the website looked sketchy as hell. Testimonials without last names, dosters without credentials, the kind of place desperate people go when they run out of options. Was Jake really considering this? I closed his laptop gently and covered him with a blanket. Paro would be soon enough to talk him out of whatever reckless plan he was hatching. Paro, I'd tell him about Dr. Landon. As I headed back to my room, I heard Jake murmur in his sleep, "Not losing you too." Those 4 words hit harder than any diagnosis, because the truth was, I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting for his too. The next morning, Dr. Reeves examined me with a frown that deepened with each test. Jake stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching every move. "The cancer is accelerating," Dr. Reeves finally said. "I'd like to adjust your medication and move up our timeline." "Timoline, for what?" Jake asked sharply. Dr. Reeves hesitated, glancing at me. I nodded, giving permission for hospice care discussion. The room went silent. Jake's face drained of color. "But what about the experimental treatment?" he demanded. "We're raising money for it." Dr. Reeves sighed. "I understand your hope, but candidly, Eric's condition may progress too rapidly for for him to qualify. The treatment requires a certain baseline health status that, bullseye, Jake interrupted. There are other options, Mexico, Germany. Jake, I said softly. Stop. Have you told him about Meridian? Jake's head snapped toward me. Told me what? I took a deep breath. I got a text last night from Meridian Research. They want to talk about treatment options. Jake stared at me, confusion turning to anger. And you didn't wake me up to tell me? You needed sleep? And I needed time to think. Dr. Reeves cleared his throat. Meridian's treatment is promising but experimental. Side effects can be severe. Quality of life considerations, with all due respect, Dr. Jake cut in. Any life is better than no life at all. As Dr. Reeves wrote up my new prescriptions, I caught Jake typing frantically on his phone. When I leaned over to see, he quickly locked the screen. What are you hiding? I asked. Nothing. Just texting Sarah about the fundraiser. I didn't believe him, but I was too exhausted to push on the drive home. Jake was unusually quiet until we hit the highway. I sold the deuce usually, he announced suddenly. This morning, while you were getting blood work, guy saw my listing, offered cash less than I wanted, but enough to matter. My stomach sank. Jake, you shouldn't have. Don't, he warned. Don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do. Not now. I need you to promise me something, he said, his voice steady despite his white knuckle grip on the steering wheel. Promise you'll take the meeting with Meridian. Impress you'll try. I looked out the window at the passing landscape. Trees and buildings blurred together, just like the line between fighting and accepting had blurred in my mind. I promise, I finally said. But Jake, you need to promise me something too, anything. Promise you won't do anything stupid, no sketchy clinics in Mexico, no black market medications. Jake's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine. When we got home, Jake helped me to the couch and went to get my new medications from the pharmacy. While he was gone, I checked his browser history. What I found made my blood run cold. He hadn't just been researching Mexican clinics, he'd been looking into selling his kidney on the black market. The going rate, $200,000, and he'd already made contact with a broker. Chapter 3. Blood Brothers. I stared at Jake's laptop in disbelief, reading the email exchange between him and someone calling themselves Medical Broker 365, healthy 25-year-old male, non-smoker, rare blood type, potential compensation of $180, negative $220K depending on urgency, procedure in Bangkok or Caracas. Jake had already filled out their donor questionnaire. He'd even sent his medical records. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to delete everything. How could he even think about this? Selling an organ on the black market wasn't just illegal, it was life-threatening. And for what? A slim chance at saving me. The front door opened. I quickly closed the laptop and tried to look casual, but Jake knew me too well. What's wrong? He asked, placing my prescriptions on the coffee table. Nothing, I lied. You are a terrible liar, Eric. Iris Hepin. I took a deep breath. I know about the kidney thing. Jake froze, his expression shifting from surprise to defiance. You went through my computer? You left it open? Jesus, Jake, a black market kidney sale? Have you lost your mind? He sat down heavily across from me. It's not what you think, really, because it looks like you were planning to sell your kidney to some sketchy broker to pay for my treatment. Bullshit. My voice cracked with emotion. You already sent them your medical information. Jake ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit since childhood. The fundraiser isn't enough. The Shindoshin wasn't enough. We need more faster. Not like this, I pleaded. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? People die during those procedures, or end up with permanent complications. People die from cancer too, he shot back, immediately regretting his words. I am sorry, that was no, I interrupted. You are right, people die from cancer. I am probably going to die from cancer, and I've made peace with that. Well, I haven't. We sat in tense silence until my phone rang. Dr. Landon from Meridian Research. Jake watched anxiously as I answered, and listened to the doctor explain the situation. After I hung up, I could barely process what I'd heard. Well, Jake demanded. They have an opening in their trial tomorrow. That's amazing. What did you tell them? I said I'd be there. He crossed the room and hugged me carefully, mindful of my pain. This is it, Eric. This is our shot. I hugged him back, but my mind was racing. There was something Dr. Landon had said that I couldn't share with Jake yet. Something that would crush him if he knew the Meridian treatment wasn't covered by insurance. Even with a trial spot, we'd need $150,000 upfront. We had exactly $91,432 in the fundraiser account. Here is more, I said hesitantly. Jake pulled back, study in my face. They need me there for 3 weeks, intensive treatment followed by monitoring. That's fine, I'll take time off work. No, I said firmly. You can't miss more shifts. You are already on thin ice with your boss. Jake started to protest, but I cut him off. I need you to keep the fundraiser going while I am there. We still need more money. It wasn't a complete lie. Fine, he agreed reluctantly. But I am driving you there tomorrow and visiting every weekend. That night after Jake went to bed, I made 3 calls. First to my bank, arranging for my life insurance policy to be cashed out early, a feature available to terminal patients. It would only yield $40,000, but it was something. Second to my estranged father, leaving a voicemail he probably wouldn't return. Third to Sarah, Jake's ex. Eric, she answered, clearly surprised. Is everything okay? I need a favor, I said quietly. And you can't tell Jake? The next morning, Jake was unusually cheerful as he helped me pack. He didn't notice that I'd slipped the printout of his kidney broker emails into my bag. I've been thinking, he said, folding my shirts with military precision. After you finish this treatment and get better, we should take that road trip we always talked about. Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, all of it. I nodded, unable to crush his optimism. Sounds perfect. On the drive to Meridian Research, Jake kept the conversation light, reminiscing about college pranks and childhood adventures, anything but my diagnosis. As we pulled up to the imposing glass building, Jake suddenly looked anxious. You sure you don't want me to stay just for the first few days? I'm sure. They said the first week is rough. Better if you're not there to see it. He helped me check in, charming the nurses and interrogating the doctors until they practically pushed him out the door. And remember our deal, no giving up. I watched him drive away, wondering if I'd made the right decision. Dr. Landon met me in my private room, reviewing my charts with a frown. Your friend is very dedicated. Too dedicated, I admitted. That's why I need to tell you something. I handed him the printouts of Jake's emails with the kidney broker. My friend is planning to sell his kidney to pay for this treatment. I can't let that happen. Dr. Landon studied the emails with concern. This is extremely dangerous and illegal. I know. That's why I need your help. I brought $91,000 from our fundraiser and another $40,000 from my life insurance. That's all I have. The treatment costs $150,000, he reminded me gently. I understand. But I'd like to propose something else. I took a deep breath. I want to fake my participation in the trial. I am not sure I understand. Let Jake believe I am receiving the treatment. Give me the standard palliative care, but tell him it's the experimental protocol. When the money runs out, tell him the treatment failed. You want to lie to your friend about receiving treatment? I want to protect him from himself, I corrected. Use the money for someone who has a better chance than me. Consider it a donation. Dr. Landon removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. What you are asking is highly unethical, more unethical than letting my friend destroy his life trying to save mine. He's already sold his most prized possession. He's about to sell an organ. Where does it end? The doctor was silent for a long moment. There was another option, he finally said. A true clinical trial starting next month. No upfront costs. But candidly, you may not have that long. My heart sank, so it's hopeless either way. He handed back Jake's emails. I need to consult with my team. In the meantime, we'll admit you and begin standard care. As nurses hooked me up to the bees and monitors, I thought about Jake driving home alone, probably already planning his next fundraising move. I needed to stop him before he did something irreversible. Sarah had promised to keep an eye on him, but Jake was stubborn. If he thought selling a kidney would save me, nothing would stand in his way that night. Jake called exactly at 7 p.m. as promised. How was the first day? He asked eagerly. Exhausting, I answered truthfully. Lots of tests and paperwork, but they started the treatment? I hesitated only briefly. Yes, they started it. Any side effects yet? Too soon to tell. Well, good news on my end, Jake said, his voice bright with forced optimism. The fundraiser hit $102,000 today, and I've got a lead on a part-time job that pays cash. My stomach twisted with guilt. Jake, you are already working 2 jobs. 3 is the magic number, right? He laughed, but it sounded hollow. Don't worry about me. You just focus on getting better. After we hung up, a nurse came in to check my vitals and found me crying. Good friend. Just after midnight, Dr. Landon returned, looking grave. Mr. Mitchell, I've discussed your situation with the ethics committee and my research team. I braced myself for rejection. We can offer you a place in the current trial with a deferred payment arrangement. I blinked in confusion. What does that mean? It means we start treatment tomorrow? You pay what you can now and the rest can be worked out later. Why would you do that? Dr. Landon glanced at Jake's emails on my bedside table. Because your friend isn't the only one willing to make sacrifices. As he turned to leave, he added, oh, and I took the liberty of calling your emergency contact. My heart dropped. You called Jake? Number the woman listed second on your form, Sarah, I believe. She's in the waiting room. Chapter 4. The truth in treatment. Sarah was the last person I expected to see at 1 a.m., standing awkwardly in my hospital room with a backpack and what looked like 3 days worth of coffee in her system. You look like hell, she said, dropping into the chair beside my bed. Good to see you too. I tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. What are you doing here? Your doctor called. Said you needed someone who wasn't Jake. She studied my face, her journalist instincts kicking in. What did you do? I sighed. I tried to fake my treatment to save Jake from selling his kidney. Sarah didn't even blink. After dating Jake for 3 years and being my friend for 5, nothing shocked her anymore. Of course you did, and I'm guessing Dr. Landon wasn't on board with insurance fraud. Not exactly, but he's offering me a spot in the trial with deferred payment. Meaning I get the treatment now and figure out payment later. Sarah ran her hands through her short hair, a habit she picked up from Jake during their relationship. That's great news. So why do you look like someone just shot your dog? I struggled to find the words. Jake's sold his car, taken extra jobs, nearly sold an organ, all for what might be false hope. And what if it does work? Sarah countered. What if 6 months from now you are in remission drinking beers with Jake and laughing about how dramatic you both were? I shook my head. The success rate is I don't care about statistics, Sarah interrupted. I care about you fighting, not for Jake, for yourself. Something in her bluntness cut through my fog of self-pity. Sarah had always been the most pragmatic person in our friend group, probably why her relationship with the overly emotional Jake had eventually combusted. Fine, I conceded. But you need to help me with Jake. He can't know about the deferred payment. If he thinks we still need money, he'll go through with the kidney thing. Sarah's expression darkened. I already handled that. What do you mean? I mean I tracked down your medical broker 365 and sent them an email from Jake's account saying he was backing out. Then I reported them to the FBI. My jaw dropped. You what? She shrugged. Perks of being an investigative journalist. I know people. For the first time in weeks, I laughed, really laughed, despite the pain it caused. Jake is going to kill you when he finds out. Jake can thank me later. She opened her backpack and pulled out a laptop. Now let's talk about your actual problem, which is the $60,000 gap between what you have and what this treatment costs. Over the next hour, Sarah transformed from ex-girlfriend to campaign manager. She revamped our GoFundMe page, contacted her media connections, and drafted social media posts with the perfect balance of hope and urgency. The trick, she explained, is to make people feel like they're part of a winning team. Nobody donates to a lost cause. By sunrise, Sarah had created a whole new strategy complete with targeted outreach to wealthy alumni from our university and local businesses. She'd even convinced her news station to run a feature on experimental cancer treatments, with me as the human interest angle. Get some rest, she said, packing up as nurses came in for morning rounds. Treatment starts today. I'll handle the fundraising and keep an eye on Jake, Sarah. I called as she reached the door. Thank you, she gave me a tired smile. Don't thank me yet. Just don't die. Okay, Jake would never recover. After she left, Dr. Landon arrived with his team to explain the treatment protocol. It involved a combination of immunotherapy and a new drug designed to target my specific cancer mutation. I need to be honest, he said after the other doctors left. This will be extremely difficult. The side effects are severe and here's no guarantee of success, I understand. Do you? Because once we start, here's no going back. I thought about Jake, about Sarah, about all the people fighting for me. I am ready. The first treatment hit like a freight train within hours. I was violently ill, shaking, vomiting, spiking fevers that made my previous symptoms seem mild by comparison. Sarah covered, saying I was resting after treatment. He's worried, she told me after hanging up. Wanted to drive up tonight. Did you stop him? Told him you specifically requested no visitors during this phase, that you didn't want him to see you suffering? The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of pain and medications. I caught glimpses of Sarah working from the corner of my room, occasionally arguing with someone on the phone in hushed tones. On the 4th day, I woke to find Jake sitting beside my bed instead of Sarah. Hey, he said softly, his face pale with shock at my appearance. I tried to smile. What happened to no visitors? Sarah had to go back to work, and I couldn't stay away anymore. He reached for my hand, careful of the teen lines. You look like death warmed over. I was going to say, like you are fighting hard. He looked haunted with dark circles under his eyes and a tension in his jaw I recognized from his mother's funeral. What's wrong? I asked. And don't say nothing. Jake hesitated. I got a weird email from that broker I told you about. My heart skipped. What broker? The one who was going to help me with a personal investment. He was choosing his words carefully, aware of potential eavesdroppers. They said someone reported them to the authorities. Intrusi, my email address. I kept my expression neutral. Strange, yeah? And when I asked Sarah about it, she got all weird and changed the subject. Damn it, Sarah. Maybe it's for the best? I suggested weakly. Jake's eyes narrowed. To hear something else, the fundraiser stalled at $115,000. Even with Sarah's media connections, we're still short. We'll figure it out, I assured him, though I had no idea how. Actually, Jake, said his voice dropping to a whisper, I've already figured it out. He pulled out his phone and showed me an email confirmation for a plane ticket to Mexico City, departing in 3 days. What is this? I demanded, though I already knew. Plan B. Here is a clinic there that... No, I interrupted. Absolutely not. Eric, listen. No, you listen. I hissed, ignoring the pain as I sat up straighter. I didn't agree to this treatment so you could throw your life away trying to fund it. Jake's expression hardened. It's my life, my choice. And this is my treatment. My choice. I reached for the call button. What are you doing? He asked, alarmed. Calling Dr. Landon. I am withdrawing from the trial. Jake grabbed my wrist. You can't do that. Watch me. I steered him down. Unless you cancel that ticket right now, I am done fighting. We were locked in a standoff, neither willing to back down. When Dr. Landon entered for his evening rounds, he looked between us, sensing the tension. Everything okay in here? No, I said before Jake could speak. I need to know something. If I drop out of the trial now, could someone else take my place? Someone with a better chance. Dr. Landon frowned. Technically, yes, but good. Then I want to withdraw, Eric. Jake protested. I ignored him. Unless my friend here cancels his plans to get funds through questionable means. Dr. Landon, catching on quickly, addressed Jake. Mr. Harris, perhaps we should discuss the financial arrangements in private. Jake looked confused. What financial arrangements? The deferred payment plan we've arranged for Eric's treatment. The color drained from Jake's face as he looked between us. What is he talking about? I sighed. The truth, Jake, the treatment doesn't need to be paid in full upfront. We have an arrangement. You lied to me? Jake's voice cracked with betrayal. To stop you from doing something stupid, I shot back. Like selling your kidney in Mexico? Dr. Landon discreetly stepped out, leaving us to our argument. Jake paced the small room, running his hands through his hair. I can't believe this. First Sarah interferes with the broker, and now I find out you've been lying about needing the money right away. We still need to pay eventually, I clarified, but not at the cost of your health. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is, I shouted, then grimaced as pain shot through me. More quietly, I added, my life, my treatment, my rules. Jake sank back into the chair, deflated. So what am I supposed to do? Just sit back and watch you suffer, hope some miracle donation comes through to cover the balance? You were supposed to let me fight this my way, I said gently. Trust that we'll figure out the money part together legally. Jake was silent for a long moment before pulling out his phone. With a few taps, he canceled the Mexico ticket. Fine, he said finally, but no more lies. From now on, total honesty. I nodded, relieved. What I didn't tell him was that earlier that day, Dr. Landon had shared my first scan results since starting treatment. The cancer wasn't responding. Chapter 5, the probing point 2 weeks into treatment. I mastered the art of fake smiling through video calls with Jake. I'd position the camera to hide the mic bags, angle my face to catch the best light, and time our conversations around my medication schedule when I could almost pass for healthy. You were looking better, Jake would say, searching my face for signs of improvement. Feeling better too, I'd lie, ignoring the burning in my veins from the latest experimental cocktail. The truth was buried in my chart. Patient showing minimal response to protocol, increased metastasis to lymph nodes and liver. Recommendation. Dr. Landon had already prepared me for this possibility. Sometimes the body doesn't respond to the first approach, he explained gently. We have other options to consider, more expensive options. I'd asked. His silence was answer enough. When Jake wasn't calling, Sarah was visiting, shuttling between her job at the news station and my hospital room like a woman possessed. She'd set up a small workstation in the corner, typing furiously on her laptop, occasionally stepping into the hallway for heated phone calls. The fundraiser's at $128,000, she announced one evening, collapsing into the visitor's chair. Still short, but getting closer. I nodded, too exhausted to speak. The day's treatment had left me particularly drained. Sarah studied me with journalist's eyes that missed nothing. They're not working, are they, the treatments? Sometimes I hated how perceptive she was. Dr. Landon wants to try a different approach. Does Jake know? What do you think? She sighed, closing her laptop. You can't keep protecting him forever, Eric. I'm not protecting him, I argued weakly. I am buying time until I have better news to share. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text. She checked it, her expression shifting to something I couldn't read. Jake, I asked. Number work? She stood abruptly. I need to handle something. Will you be okay alone for a bit? I gestured to the nurse's call button. I've got a whole hospital staff at my fingertips. After she left, I dozed fitfully. Dreams mixing with memories, Parn, Jake and me as kids, building a treehouse that collapsed the moment we climbed inside. Jake's mom's funeral, where he stood stone-faced until everyone left, then broke down in my arms. The night I got my diagnosis, drinking whiskey on our apartment roof until sunrise. I woke to raised voices in the hallway. Can't just barge in here demanding. That was Dr. Landon. I have every right to know what's happening with my best friend. And that was definitely Jake's shit. The door burst open. Jake stormed in, followed by a flustered Dr. Landon and a stoic Sarah. Jake, I said, trying to sound stronger than I felt. What are you doing here? His eyes were wild, face flushed, apparently finding out the truth, since no one will tell me anything. Mr. Harris, as I explained, patient confidentiality, save it, Jake snapped. Eric, are you going to tell me what's really happening, or do I need to steal your chart? I looked to Sarah, who mouthed, I am sorry, behind Jake's back. Give us a minute, I asked Dr. Landon. He nodded reluctantly. 5 minutes. Then Mr. Harris needs to calm down, or security will escort him out. After they left, Jake paced like a caged animal. Sarah let it slip that they're changing your treatment. Why? What's wrong? I considered lying again, but couldn't find the energy. The first protocol isn't working as well as they hoped. Jake stopped pacing. What does that mean exactly? It means the cancer is still growing. They need to try something else. He sank into the chair, the anger draining from him. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd react like this, and because I didn't want you doing anything crazy, like flying to Mexico or selling body parts. What plan to suffer in silence until things magically got better? Put that way, it did sound ridiculous. I didn't want